So while we're learning all of these things about them, getting introductions from them, something that really popped out to me was the fact that we had a couple of people, particularly the women, with quotes like, I want to be chosen, I want forever to start today. There's something about a man wanting to marry you. And this particular language, I think, really plays into the fact that women are expected to center men no matter what is happening in their lives. And that you can be in a happy and healthy relationship that does not center men in the patriarchy, even if you are with a man. And so when I listened to, I believe it was Zaina say there's something special about a man wanting to marry you, it was like, is there something special about any man wanting to marry you? Or is there something special about the person that is your person wanting to marry you? Because I'm sure there are plenty of men that would marry Zaina, but that doesn't mean that all of them make great husbands for her. So it's just something that I think is important for us to kind of keep in mind as we go through this series, because we're going to see a lot more of that. I don't know, ideology kind of playing out. So once all the couples have been introduced, they all sit down together with the hosts of the show, Nick and Vanessa Lachey. Y'all know I don't love them as hosts on Love is Blind, but I actually think The Ultimatum, if you're going to pick a show, does make sense for them because they talk about this every season. They were in a similar situation. Vanessa gave Nick the ultimatum. I believe it was after they were dating for 5 years. And Nick Lachey used to be married to Jessica Simpson before him and Vanessa got together. So, he had been married already. He just wasn't sure. And I think that it's important to keep that type of nuance in mind. If you have somebody who has gone through the process of going through a divorce, that is a really grueling grief process. And so if somebody wants to try to, be sure, or at least a little bit more sure the second go around, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because you want to make sure you're ending up with the person you want to end up with. At the same time, if your, vouching process takes 10 to 12 business years, that's also probably not going to fly for whoever you're with, not just based off a plethora of reasons. So, if marriage is really something that is important to you, and it doesn't need to be for that matter, right? Like, marriage does not need to be an importance for you. If you are not interested in getting married, you don't have to get married. I don't think anybody who is not interested in getting married should get married, because why would you do that? Don't do that. In the same way that, like, if you do not want to have kids, don't have kids. You should not have to do things like that if you do not want to. And so I think really what we're going to find out on this show is, do these people want to do these things or what? Okay. So Vanessa points out that it's okay, though, to not be ready for marriage. I think that's important. Like I said, she points out the fact that she did a lot of finger pointing around the time that she gave Nick Lachey the ultimatum, and was not realizing that she needed to really like show through action what she was ready for based off of the language she was using, i.e., like, yes, I'm ready to have kids, versus like in the action being, I don't know, nesting to some degree, versus like, I'm ready to have kids, and the action being, I'm out till 2 a.m. and come home drunk and throw up everywhere. Like, which of those people are you gonna trust is really ready to have kids? So there's that. And they, explain the timeline. We already talked about that. And the only interesting note I had from that first dinner is that Caleb leaned over to Mariah and said, "We can turn back now." She kind of dismissed him a little bit, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. So after dinner, they go back with their partners they came with. They're chatting. There's a lot of conversations about like, oh my God, like, I can't believe you're gonna like actually break up with me and leave me and go and be with somebody else, which is very interesting because that is quite literally the premise of the show. Like, of course, that's what they're gonna do. That's what y'all signed up to do. So why are we confused about that? Not sure, especially coming from the people that gave the ultimatum. What's going on here? And I think that it's also very interesting that they it seems like production is really gung-ho about them utilizing language like my ex after this point in the process, after introductions have happened when speaking about whoever they came with. And I think that's so interesting because it shows that this show has a very monogamous lens, because like why would you need to break up with your significant other if you know you're going to be back together in 3 weeks? You wouldn't. But like monogamy is such a black and white thing that it's like, oh, we're going to have them call them their ex even though we know they're going to get back together in 3 weeks. Weird. But you know, that's they business. But something that definitely popped out from me thinking about how we think about relationships, romantic relationships in general. Um, and that takes us to the point where they, do quote unquote break up the next morning. They leave each other. They all kind of, I think, go into individual apartments or hotel rooms. And then we start to see some dating happening.